So what we're talking about here is the stellar cult. The cult of the Watchers of the Stars, which were the Egyptians, the stellar cult. It is believed that there was a great flood, as it states in the Sumerian, Babylonian, Syrian, Egyptian, and Judeo-Christian mythologies, also the North American and South American traditions. And this is the reason there is no evidence to corroborate the massive civilizations of early periods of these peoples. It is believed that after this last great catastrophe around 12,000 BC, all the evidence of the civilizations were wiped out. There is great evidence that a very advanced civilization existed and was devastated by a catastrophic event around 12,000 BC. Orthodox Egyptology presents that in the early days of the inundation, the plains of the Nile had dwelt in a Neolithic manner, circa around 7,000 to 5,000 BC. If in fact this is true, how then could these primitive people have built such structures as a Sphinx around 8,000 BC? Linear evolution in this case just doesn't supply evidence for the facts. What's more staggering is that the Egyptians, barely out of the recesses of a primitive Neolithic state, built the pyramids with sophisticated astronomical accuracy and cosmological accuracy, without any kind of machinery or concept of zero. So the mainstream theory just doesn't hold much water when we look at things this way. We have to put the archaeological theories aside. Also, we find that the institution of writing was put forth for two distinct purposes: to administer to the royal propaganda, and to coordinate the royal administration. So basically for bureaucratic activities, to propagate the mythologies and to coordinate the trade routes and the duties of the king and essentially the serpent line. We are unable to determine exactly how and why the Egyptian rulers came to believe themselves derived from serpent gods. However, it is a peculiar feature of the mythologies of the world that the ruling classes have descended from an ancient race of serpent gods. And because of the commonness of apparently disconnected ancient peoples, this peculiarity is worth investigation. Modern scholars interpret these explanations given by the Egyptians themselves as just mythologies, and they don't really look at them very seriously. However, we have to look at it seriously because the ancient kings of China claim that they descended from snake gods. The African myths, the South American myths, also the Iroquois and the Sioux Indians. It's replete around the world for the elite and the ruling classes to claim descent from serpent gods. Again, we have the Vatican using the same sort of symbolism of Dagon, the Babylonian mythology. We have on the left-hand side Dagon, the fish god with the fish hat and the mitre, and we see also the Pope wearing the same sort of headgear representing the fish god Dagon. We see also the Vatican using some of the Egyptian emblems of the fan, waving the fan of Bacchus as the Egyptians used and the Romans. And this was a fan that was symbolic, had alchemical measures and all kinds of other very significant symbolic meaning. The Egyptian genetic line and the doctrines that they secretly practiced were slowly disseminated to the public only after the esoteric meaning of the ancient rituals and symbols was lost to the myths and hidden in the open culture. However, the secret meaning of the ancient religion was carefully guarded by the priests, even long after their order had vanished. And this is part of the genius of the Egyptians, because the technology that they built in their temples were sort of talismanic depositories in which consciousness was built inside the temple, in which the memory of that would become a vessel by which one could sort of maneuver through into the Duat, the imaginary realm of the Egyptians. So the emergence of the secret societies held custody over this, and they've been battling about this mystery school ever since. And this is what the priests of Egypt were all about. And the pyramid text tells us all about these things, the book of the coming and the going, and the book of the pyramid text, the book of the dead as it's called. This is about a 3,500 BC year old document, and this was written with a full-blown cosmology when the Egyptians were apparently barely out of the recesses of barbarianism. So here we have a golden chair, and we have the headdress of King Tut, ornate and sophisticated and detailed metallurgic accomplishments, when essentially the Egyptians were barely out of the recesses of a stone culture, a Neolithic culture. Basically, the American Indians were still living in a stone culture when we got here, when the white people got here. So that just gives you some scale of the Egyptian technology. Now, I've said too much about the methods and tactics of the Black Brotherhood. Now it is time to speak of that eternal flame of truth, that white brotherhood that carefully guards the beacon of the world. I have said much about Egypt and how their magic has been relegated to the realm of mythology so its power could be out in the open and more secretly guarded. The secrets that the Egyptian priests were hoarding were that of immortality, although there is no way to detect whether the priests were protecting these secrets from outside genetic lines of the indigenous inferior earth races, or simply as mythology created to institute the massive bureaucracy of ancient kings. The kernel of the mystery which was embedded into Egyptians' culture was immortality in the afterlife. There is much debate as to what exactly the Egyptians meant when they used this concept. What is clear, however, is that the Egyptians believed in an actual traveling from earth to the land of the gods through what is called the Duat. The Duat was a netherworld between the living and the immortal world. The Duat has a serious psychological significance, and that brings us back to the concept of Hermes Trismegistus in less remote times in classical Greece, which is that which is above is as that which is below, and that which is below is as that which is above. And this enigmatic phrase has to do a lot with anchoring the ancient heavenly world with the earth. And we're going to talk a little bit about that now. And before we talk about that, we have to understand that after the loss of the technology of the alien masters, when these catastrophes happened, the first thing that had to be done was to map the sky. So the ancient astrotheological religion was reintroduced to humanity by the Atlantean shamans, and that's what this is all about. That's what all these religions are about: bringing the population up and training the people in calculating the stars. This was done on the northern coasts of Europe, where the first tribes of the destroyed Atlantis first emerged, in Ireland, on the west coast of Ireland. And now that brings us to more recent times, the age of Taurus, Aries, and Pisces, which runs from around 4,490 BC to around 2000 AD, or around now. So now we're in historical times, and here we see a sky map of the constellation Taurus and the sky of Taurus. So the signifiers of the beginning of this age, the age of the sun, we have the Horus, the Egyptian god of resurrection, the child Horus. And again, Abydos. Now this is about the time where we start to see Egyptians riding these helicopters and submarines on the sides of their temples in Abydos, in Karnak, and other places. And we have the mythology of the bull. And we know about the mythology of the bull because we have Hathor, the bull, because now we went through Gemini, and we went through Cancer and Leo, and now we have the age of Taurus, the bull. And we know about the bull through Baal, through the Bible, through the story of Genesis, essentially is the most famous bull, which is a solar bull. The bull is the supplanting of the patriarch over the matriarch. They still use the symbol of the crescent symbol, but they just put masculine symbols on top of it. And we know that the Israelites were worshiping the Babylonian religion of Baal after Moses went up on the mountain to try to bring them into the Aryan religion of Aries, the ram. So they had fallen back to the Babylonian religion of the bull that they learned inside of Egypt. And we see here the man over top of the bull, the symbol of the bull. And we know Gideon was compared to the bull in the Bible. He's compared to Marduk and the bull, the solar god. We see Shiva, the ancient Indian god, represented as the bull here, the solar symbol, under the tree, the agrarian tree, because now we have the same symbols of the agrarian goddess, the bull. And we have all those symbols of the tree and the bull, fertility symbols, all put onto the male figure through now the age of the Taurus, the bull, the historical period, the bureaucracy. The male figure, the power cults. We have Buddha sitting in the same sort of posture, the famous posture of meditation. And we have further symbols. Again, we have the Irish Celtic god of the bull, of the Celtic stag, sitting in the same Buddha posture of the agrarian symbol. And we have, again, the overthrow of the bull by the Aryan age, when we have Moses coming down the mountain to bring in the age of Aries. That's why the Jews use essentially the ram's horn, and all the business with the sacrifice of the ram. And we have to displace the bull, because now we have the age of Aries. We have Aries rising instead of Taurus rising. So Moses was upset because when he was gone, trying to install the new god of the ram, the people had fallen back into the old age religion that they were used to, the age of the bull. And then after Moses, after the ram, of course, we have the age of the fish. And we know his symbol is the fish, and the Christian age of the fish. So that brings us into very historical times, where now we have this symbol of